Hello again, everybody. Welcome to yet another edition of Journey Through Sports and Life. Great to have you along. Scott along with
Marjorie Lewis
and Marnie Schneider.
We are the trifecta that's going to take you along for the next hour or thereabouts. So thanks for being a part of this. And we, of course, talk about sports. We talk about Olympic champions. We talk about Super Bowl winners, World Series champions,
right.
and, of course, their families and all their great history. So what's the best part that you enjoy most about this show, doing that?
Oh, I just love every story. I love stories. Our guests always have such great experiences.
And stories we've never heard about.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's what I
absolutely.
love because, you know, there are a lot of things that are already out in the public square, but we get some more inside.
The inside
The
story.
scoop. Yeah, that's
right.
And I love stories, so.
How about it, Marnie?
I think that along with Marjorie, what she said, definitely hearing all the stories and then figuring out like how we're all connected through sports. Like even if we've not played the big games and we haven't done that stuff, we still can all enjoy those moments, and we really are connected because sports really is, we've said this before, the universal language.
Well, you've been connected to
definitely.
sports for your entire life, for Pete's sake. Tell them who your grandfather was.
Yeah, so my grandfather, Leonard Toews, on the Philadelphia Eagles, and my mom, Susan, ran the team for my grandfather, and to this day is still the only female vice president, legal counsel, and general manager of a professional football team. So,
And that's why Marjorie and I have to do everything Marty says, because she's in charge, you know, just like her mom and just like her grandfather,
I feel
right?
like I'm the lightweight here next to you guys.
All right, not at all, not at all. Do you want to tell us about our special guest today?
Yes.
Who's someone we all know.
Exactly.
We've known him for
We've
years,
known Brian
and a good
for
man.
many years.
And
That's
Brian's a
right.
good man. But go ahead,
Yeah,
bring us up to
okay.
date.
Well, I'm excited for our guest today. We have Brian Boscoe. Now, Brian and I met back when you were with radio with KRLD in Dallas.
That's right.
And then Brian went from radio. He went to Martha's Vineyard for a while, came back
Right.
to Texas. He's done different kinds of public relations or sports information. He was with SMU at one point, University of North Texas, which is also his alma mater. And he currently, he was with also the Texas Motor Speedway.
Yes, he was. I
He
wondered
spent
if you were
time
going to
at
get that.
Speedway.
'cause
That's right. I might forget some of the things, but you
yeah.
can fill us in. He also now has his own company, Briscoe Communications, and does a lot of public relations work for people. So he's got a very full resume, lots of life experiences, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
Briscoe Communications, that's why he calls himself the ABC man.
That's-
See, awesome Briscoe Connect. See?
There you
See?
go.
Very well done, Scott.
There you
ABC.
go.
Thank you.
See?
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly.
That's the company. That's it. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Thank you, Scott, Marnie, Marjorie. I'm doing great. I
Good,
appreciate you having me here today.
Good. Well, make sure you're close enough to that
All right.
that microphone
I'll
so
remember
everybody
this.
can hear all
Just
the
like
wonderful
old
things you have
radio
to
days.
say.
Sure.
That's right.
You know, Marjorie just gave you the intro, and I certainly remember you back when you were at KRLD and was president of the board of the Speedway Children's Charity, so saw you out there at the Speedway all the time, and I just wondered, is there one thing that comes to mind before we get into your great history that you would say, you know what, the thing I enjoyed most was, boom, go for it.
Wow. Well, that's a great question. You know, when I went to school at the University of North Texas, I was dead set I was going to work in radio for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be a disc jockey and play music.
Oh, sounds familiar here.
Yes, until I mispronounced Bruce Springsteen's name on the air.
Oh,
My
what'd
very
you call
Well,
him?
just out of curiosity, what'd you call him?
The very first time I opened the microphone as a student in a lab, you know, they let you try about an hour before they
Right.
set you loose.
Yeah.
So I'm petrified, and I'm going to open the microphone for the very first time. Well, this was back when his song "Born to Run" was topping the charts.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to lead with that in my 1 hour lab, and I'm just petrified. So I'm getting ready. Back when they played vinyl, real albums, I've got it queued up, ready to go. Got my words ready, and I open the microphone and I say, "Now, here is Born to Run from Spruce Springsteen."
Oh, you're kidding.
So, realizing what I had done to the boss's name,
Right,
I froze like a good broadcaster in his first time out would do.
right.
And I turned the mic off and just let the song play. Never said another word for the rest of the hour.
Really?
Oh, you're kidding.
Just played songs, and I thought, you know what, that might be the end of my
Yeah, that could be my
disc
job.
jock career,
Oh,
and maybe sports is where I should go. So a little sidetrack there. I thought that was where we were going to go, but I had such a love for sports and sportscasting But the one thing that you mentioned, I think it was before I got into the public relations side of my life, I loved, when I was in radio, I loved doing games on the air, broadcasting games. I did some play-by-play, did a lot of color analysis on broadcast at KRLD, and I just loved that. I lived for that. Yeah.
It's interesting. You know, I've got to tell you this story.
Yeah.
What he just said, you think, oh, you got to be kidding me. You want to be a disc jockey, or you
Right.
want to be on the
That's
radio
why I
and you
said
can't
it
talk?
sounds familiar.
Same thing happened to me. Same
Yeah.
thing. Do you know
Exactly.
this story?
Oh,
That
yeah.
What happened? I'm 17 years old. I'm in college studying to be a pediatrician, and I've got a chance to be a disc jockey. And I'm so excited. So I go down. The general manager's right there, and he said, "Okay, you ready?" Program director, and they're sitting there, and there were windows all the way around. You know, just like we're sitting at the table, there were windows, and they were right here, and they were in this room next to me, but there was a window there, and they cued me, and they said, "No, when it comes up, this is the first thing you're going to get a chance to say. This is going to be your debut. Don't say your name. Don't say anything until at the end you say, Scott Murray, details coming up at the top of the hour." And the first thing you have to say is, the president has made his decision. Don't tell him what it is or not. The president has made his decision. I'm Scott Murray. We'll have details at the top of the hour. That's it. So I remembered that. Oh, I can, I went over that for an hour. You know, that's what I got. Well,
What could go wrong?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know. Well, this was at 4:45. This was coming is to the top of the hour at 5. So all of a sudden they're there, and he says, "I'll cue you," and he cues me when it was time, and I went. Nothing would come out. Nothing would come out, and he's going like this, and he's going like this, and nothing would come out. I didn't know what to. So he got on the mic and said exactly what it was,
What you should have
and said, "Scott Murray will have, details at the top of the hour." Well, then he shuts the mic off. The music comes on, and I see the two of them go out the door there and walk around. And like I said, it's all glass, so I can see them walking all the way around till they came in the door right over here.
Oh, my gosh.
And he opens up the door, and I said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry." No, like I said, I'm 17 years old. I'm a freshman in college, and I just nothing would come out. He said, "All right, things can happen. You've got 1 hour to think about it because you're going to give the same headline coming into the 6 o'clock news." And I said, "Okay." So I sat there for an hour. I sweated bullets.
Oh, my gosh.
And then he cued me, and I
Delivered
did
it on cue.
Yeah,
And
it was
it's all-
fine, and the rest is history.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
I'll never. So when you told that story, Brian, that's all I could think
Sure.
of.
Once
Well,
I said
you know-
Spruce Springsteen, the rest was
Yeah,
history
oh,
of
yeah.
my DJ career.
Yeah, so I didn't go into radio. I went into print, but I did look into radio at one point, and I did an interview.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
Did you really?
I was in college. I was 19, and I was auditioning for a radio station
Where was that?
in Phoenix,
Okay.
and I mispronounced Idi Amin. I called him Idi Amin. And that was the end of my career in radio.
Bye, Marjorie.
Yeah, exactly.
All the best.
But with Bruce Springsteen,
Yeah.
I have to say, you could have played it a little way, because when I was in high school, I used to sing, and I did a lot of Linda Ronstadt songs. And so my high school
Anything you
class,
want to share with us today?
Sure.
Or?
yeah, no, no. But my high school class used to call me Rhonda Lindstadt. So it's the same with the spring.
Well,
the
if I'd
spruce.
have been a little more polished, but at 17, 18 years old, I froze, and I never queued up so many records after that.
That's
Never said
hilarious.
another
Just
word.
imagine.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So see, we can relate to all these
Okay.
radio.
Yeah.
And you were ahead of your time, because now, with satellite radio, they don't really have a lot of commercial breaks
No,
or,
that would've been great.
voiceovers.
Yeah, that's
so
a good
you
point.
maybe,
That's a good point.
You were definitely way ahead of the curve by just playing the music.
I'm going to claim that.
Way-
I
way
was
ahead
a
of your time.
trailblazer
Yeah.
instead
Yeah,
of
that's
messing
right.
up.
Way ahead of your time.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Brian, when we met, you were at KRLD. You were working with an incredible team, and what brought you there, and what was that experience? Because the people you were working with too, everybody, that was one of the most incredible sports radio staffs that I can remember.
Yeah, you're right, Marjorie. It really was KRLD back in the early 80s.
I'm trying to think who it was. Frank Gleber.
Frank Gleber
Yeah,
was
Frank
the sports
Gleber there.
director at that time. And,
Yeah.
I had been hired in as just an underling I had worked in some local cable TV, but my goal was I really wanted to be at KRLD because I knew at that time they had the sports staff as far as radio was concerned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All news and sports and flagship for the Cowboys and all of that. So Frank Lieber, who did a lot of CBS network at that time, was the sports director. Brad Sham also was on the staff.
And he went on to.
And Brad, of course, went on to be the voice of the Cowboys after that, after Frank had passed away.
Right.
But really, Brad was kind of my mentor. Not really kind of. He was my mentor, and he hired me in. They were expanding the sports staff, so they had a couple of others at that time. Art Haynes that was one who had gone on and then left and went to another market. So there was 3 or 4 of us, but we would eventually expand pretty quickly after I got hired in. Chuck Cooperstein would come in.
Who's now the voice
of the Dallas Mavericks on radio. Craig Way would be hired, another North Texas graduate from our.
And he's down
now
doing
the voice
UT. He's
of
doing UT, right?
Austin, and he's been there
Texas.
covering the
Been there a
Longhorns
long
for a long
time.
time.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was just a great place to be, and I knew that's where I wanted to be. So Brad hired me in, and again, this is about 1981, to produce his talk show, which was a nightly hour-and-a-half talk show, and to do midday sportscast. So from like 9 to 3, we did them every 30 minutes. So this was a huge break for me.
Oh, yes.
To come in and having not really done any radio, just some local cable TV, but we had a lot of connections there. Craig Way was one that helped me get aboard because they were looking to expand the staff. So you're right. We had an amazing team to work with. And we just kept hiring some people in. A lot of the people that went on to the ticket, which morphed and came about in the 1994.
94 is when that came
94.
about. Yeah.
Right.
A lot of people that were there started and came through KRLD, and a lot of them were, some of my North Texas compatriots, George Dunham and Craig Miller. All of those were North Texas people, and all were working at KRLD at the time when the ticket came on the air.
Yeah.
So KRLD was a huge stepping stone, a huge opportunity for me.
Oh, I remember when I moved to Dallas in 1980, January of 1980, and found KRLD on my car radio. I couldn't believe that it was so advanced. I had never been exposed to a radio station like that in Phoenix or in Albuquerque or any place else that I lived. And it was such a treat.
And the one thing that I really enjoyed, the approach, you don't see radio stations doing this a lot now for a lot of reasons, but we had a pretty free rein to what Brad and Frank wanted to do with the sports team and our programming. I mean, we were sending people to the NFL draft, the NBA draft, broadcasting live from there, the Kentucky Derby. We were doing golf stroke-by-stroke coverage of the Byron Nelson and the Colonial. I mean, who does that on radio?
Right.
So it was a blast of the kind of things that they were wanting to do with radio. And, of course, me as a young broadcaster and getting in sports, I thought, I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful.
Didn't get much better than that. I'll tell you a story, and not to downplay it at all, because KRLD is one of the greatest of all time, no question. But as you said, Sports Central, everybody listened to that. And this was 1989, February of 89. We had an inside source for a deep throat, as they call them, for the sale of the Dallas Cowboys.
Pretty big story.
And who was gonna buy? And of course, everybody was talking about Jerry Buss was gonna be, the owner of the L.A. Lakers was a name you heard a lot.
Right.
Excuse me. And so we had that inside source, and I had been told by our source, hey, Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson are going to be down in Florida at Jimmy's home this coming weekend. So the weekend before the sale of the Cowboys was broken, I said, okay, great. Well, my dad's birthday was on February 18th, and I thought, oh, great. So I said, we'll send him. I said, I remembered that day because it was my dad's birthday. So we sent a crew down there, and I said, let's see if we can get some video of. Well, what did we get? We got video of Jerry and Jimmy in Jimmy's driveway talking. Wow. So the guy told me, he says, it's all yours. So our crew comes back, and now it's Thursday night, the 23rd of February, 1989, and the news director, as I came off the air at 6 o'clock, says, "Murray, get in here." And I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Why are we sending a crew down to Miami?" And I said, "You said we had to get down there," because I didn't tell anybody who was, the news director. I just told him we needed to get down there. So we sent a crew down, and he said, "What are we wasting the station's money going down there? I just heard on KRLD, Jerry Buss is getting it." So he said, in other words, KRLD was the god.
That was it. That's
They
right.
said
If
it.
KRLD
And
said
is it
that
Jerry
was it.
Buss? I said, "No, it's
You
not
might
Jerry
want to
Buss."
check that out. Though.
Yeah.
Well, he did. Jerry Buss, owner of the LA Lakers basketball team. I said, "No, it's not." "Well, what are they saying that for?" "That's KRLD." And we went on for this conversation for a couple minutes. I said, "Let me go call our source." So I went back to the sports, to my office, to my desk, and I called him. And he said, "Scott, no, you know who it is. Go for it. We're going to have a press conference on Saturday and officially announce it. But you've been with us for 6 months. You've played it straight. You've done it with great honesty and integrity. Go for it. It's your story. It'll be in national news tonight." And I said, "Oh, right." So I went back into the news director and told him. And so he said, "Oh, Kathy, get down here." He calls up and he gets our PR girl to come down here. And I said, no, you can't do that. Then the other stations will get it, or KRLD or somebody. No, I said, let's just hold off. So I said, at any rate, I've got to call Tex Schramm and Tom Landry and tell them. I mean, this is 29 years of their life.
Right.
They've been here since 1960. And he said, "Oh, you're kidding." And I said, "Yeah, we've got to do that." So at 2 minutes to 10, I called Coach Landry, and it was back in the day that you got busy signal.
Sure.
And so I said, "Okay." Well, I called Tex. And, "Scott, how are you?" I said, "Well, I'm good, Tex. I've been better, but I've got some news to share with you that I said, but I just want you to know that we're going to go on the air, and the Cowboys are, going to be sold here, and there's some stuff, and you need to watch the show." I didn't tell him what it was. But I said, "The Cowboys have been sold," and he said, "Oh, Scott, don't even go there." I said, "I think they're going to make some changes at coach and GM," and he said, "Oh, Scott," and said, told me where my head was, and just let it go at that. And I said, "No, Tex, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I said, "You're a good man and a longtime friend. I'm sorry, but that's what it is, and I just want you to know." And I tried to call Coach. I said, "I just got off the phone with him." I said, "Well, please let him know." And then I called Coach later after the news and met him at Valley Ranch the next morning as he cleared his desk out. But at any rate, we went on the air and said Jerry Jones had just bought the Dallas Cowboys and broke the story.
Yeah.
And, biggest story I was ever a part of in my entire career.
kidding.
And
But,
yet,
And I think that's when Brad called me right after your Sportscaster and said, "You need to follow up on what Scott just reported."
Yeah, exactly.
I think he may be onto something.
Well, nobody knew.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody knew. And, and then Jerry, to this day, gets blamed for not talking to Coach Landry and telling him what was going on. Well, the reason he couldn't is because we broke the story on Thursday and the press conference was going to be on Saturday,
Right.
48 hours later.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And yet, even though Scott's, television channel had the story, it still took convincing because KRLD had already said something else.
I
And
don't
so
know.
Well,
that's kind of a,
and that's what I was saying.
yeah, it's a
That's what
testament
the
to
news director, for Pete's sake, saying, "Well, KRLD said this."
exactly. And KRLD broke a lot of stuff too. I mean,
Sure.
I was with the Fort Worth Star Telegram and the Dallas Morning News, and I did not like it when KRLD or Scott
and-
broke stories.
and that was back in the day, certainly, where we all followed each other. We would say, what is the Dallas Times-Herald? What is the Morning News saying in the story? What is KXAS got? What does Channel 8 have?
Yes.
And we would see it. We would all see each other at every event.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Yeah.
we all monitored what everybody else was reporting.
Absolutely.
So we could see,
Absolutely.
maybe I need to follow up on something here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're all
Good.
friends.
Yes.
Everybody's
Good.
very
Yeah.
cordial while you're kind of peeking over on that
That's
notepad.
exactly it.
No.
What is
Good
that
way-
name
yeah.
she wrote down?
Yeah, great way to put it, Brian.
And what you said, Marjorie, and obviously Brian being very cordial, Scott, we know you are. I think the level of being cordial and decorum in the Dallas Fort Worth media is really truly something to be admired, because in other cities, and I can speak a little bit about Philadelphia, the level of kind of I don't want to say low life level,
respect.
but it was not
Competition.
great.
Respect.
It was,
Respect.
they were pretty, pretty grungy there.
Yeah.
A lot of to try to get the stories, or just their version of the story was always a little bit inaccurate. And so I do think, bravo to you guys for reporting accurately and with civility as well. For sure.
Yeah, so now that she mentions that, did you consider yourself a reporter, a producer, on-air talent? At that
Yes,
point in your career,
to
what?
all of the
All of
above.
them.
Yeah,
All
I
of
was
them.
going to say, can you say yes to all
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
above?
exactly.
Well, after I was there, and I was at KRLD for 7 years, so I would say mostly a reporter, because I did produce Brad's show, and I produced a couple of other shows that we did, special productions along the way. But eventually, someone else would come in and produce Brad's talk show, Craig Way, later on, because of our air shifts. So I became more of a reporter back then. But you're talking about Marnie's civility among the media. That reminded me of some stories, especially on the radio side. I don't know how it worked, certainly with print or television, Scott, but we had a really great working relationship with the other stations. Back then, WBAP radio was probably our big competitor. And WFAA, who had radio at that time, 570, was too, but it was primarily WBAP.
Yeah, that's how I always saw it.
Yeah.
And so we were all at everybody, and I knew him really well. And then, of course, there was Chris Arnold, who's still at every event ever.
That's right.
And so Chris was also there at every event back then. But there would be times where, and this happened to me, where I would have some technical problems back in the old days of cassette deck players.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to record an interview or a press conference. And then, you're spinning the cassette back, and all of a sudden, something happened. I didn't get anything. So then there would be a problem.
That's brutal for radio.
It's brutal. If I don't have sound, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah.
But this has happened a couple of times where then my compatriots are really competitors at the other stations. We're talking, I don't have anything. Go, here, just give me your mini cords. And we would plug cassette deck to cassette deck.
Oh, that's
and
great.
Dub off the press conference from his to mine. And, that's probably unheard of in a lot of markets. But a lot of guys came to bail us each other out, and I did that for other people as well.
Yeah, because it's
we
not
just had
like
a
you're
good
sharing
working
a
relationship.
breaking story.
No,
it's a
it
press
wasn't a breaking
conference.
story. Now, if it was a breaking story, I might have to say, you'll have to listen to
Yeah,
that on the air.
exactly. Exactly.
Take a number.
Sure, can't do that.
Yeah. Well, then, that's why I asked if you would consider yourself a reporter, because then you see things from two sides, because
Yeah.
now you're public relations.
Yes.
So how do your reporting skills, how did that parlay into your public relations, and how do you sort of, when somebody wants to get a big story, but now your loyalty is more to your client
Sure.
than it is to breaking a story like it had been
Right.
in previously.
Yeah,
how do you
there's a fine line to walk
Yeah.
there. But to answer the first part of that question, Marjorie, being in the media and then jumping over to, as we like to call it now, the dark side, and I guess it's looked at that on either way, to PR. My experience and my time in the media has been and continues to be invaluable. Because just like what you said, I could see what reporters and broadcasters and writers, what they were looking for. I knew what they were looking for, and the angles or the story ideas, the hooks.
Yeah.
And so I knew that, and that helped me tremendously when I left to go to, as you mentioned, SMU, and then on to do college athletics, public relations for a long, long time, and then the Speedway, of course, and book publishing, PRs, a lot of different things, to where I ended up now with my own PR. That being able to visualize what reporters are looking for was huge for me. Now, representing my clients and reporters saying, here's what I want, and I have to realize, or I have to consider, so, how much am I going to give them, or is this really going to work? That's the fine line. But hey,
Yeah.
that's why I get paid to do what I do, to represent my client, position them in branding and promoting their message, but yet knowing what a reporter wants.
I think that all PR people should be reporters first.
I agree.
And,
I
one of the
totally agree.
reasons was when I was a reporter, I'd get public relations press releases coming across my desk, and probably 95% of the time I would look at it and think, why do they think I would care about this?
Yes.
This is a waste of their time, and I'm not going to use any of this. So if you're a reporter, you mention this, you know what they're looking for. And so if you want to get some kind of attention from the media, then you have to give them something of value. Otherwise, it's just going to be ignored.
You're exactly right. And I've run into that with a lot of my clients over the 7 years that I've been doing Briscoe Communications. But because you know how clients are, they just think anything about their company or their brand or their message is a story.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have to tell them, there's stories, then there's advertising, then there's no story. And,
Exactly.
And so I've gone down through all three of those paths, and clients are really excited about whatever it is they're wanting to say. And just like you said, Marjorie, and Scott, I know you run across this all the time, getting pitched. And I have to, when my client comes to me and, okay, here's what we're doing this, maybe it's benefiting somebody, and okay, let me think about that. So what's the message here? And then I have to think about, so how am I going to pitch that to the producer
Yes.
or the writer or the journalist, the sportscaster? A lot of those people who I know personally, and is this going to be the last time they're ever going to accept a pitch from me? I have to think about all those things. So it's how I position that story, and a lot of times I have to talk the client off the cliff a little bit.
Yeah.
That's not a story. Trust me. If I send this out to the media in a pitch, they're going to just laugh at me, or we won't ever get another chance at it. This is not the story. Let's save it and do something else next
Yeah,
time.
great point. Great point. Yeah, a really good point. And you're right. That happens to us to this very day.
Totally.
People will call me, "Hey, Scott, what about that?" I said, where's the wow factor in it? Or where's
Exactly.
this? Or where's,
Yes.
how's it going to affect how many people?
That's
Who's
correct.
it going to touch the most? If it's only going to touch 10 people, 100,000? Okay, let's talk.
Right.
So, your point's incredibly
And
well
I'm
taken.
all good too with exclusive
Yeah.
stories if it makes sense for the client and for the media representative for that
Right.
side.
Yeah.
Is it a good fit for both? And I've done that certainly with clients, because I just think, you know what? Because I've built a lot of great relationships over the years, Scott being one of those, and Marjorie.
Yeah, but you know
with the
what?
media.
Let
And
me
so-
jump in there.
Yeah.
The reason you have, and this goes right back at you, because they trust you. They can count on it.
Absolutely.
They have respect
Yes,
for you,
definitely.
Well,
and they can
appreciate
count on you. It's like in my keynote, I talk about the trifecta. 3 words that all start with the letter T, like trifecta.
Yeah.
Truthful, trustworthy, transparent. That's the kind of person you want to be around and support yourself with. And you
I
are.
appreciate
You are.
that.
So but that's your reputation, though.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's really all I have to
Well, that's why you
offer
continue.
the media or my
Yeah,
clients.
but that's
is
why you
my
continue
reputation.
to still be in the business, still be in the world
Yeah.
because of it. Because that's Brian. Yeah, I can count on him.
And thank you for that. And I cherish those relationships that I built over 30 years, both in the media side and
Right.
since PR, because I'm still
Yeah.
leaning on them or relying on that.
Well-
So when I go to a person to pitch a story, and whether I have as close a relationship that maybe we have, or I just know they're a producer, but I know them from years of pitching, I always calculate, how is this going to play with them? Am I going to be just another guy pitching, or am I going to kind of try to lean on, hey, we know each other pretty well, and I'm not going to just send you a story that you're going to just discard because
Right.
it's
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's important to me too. Thanks.
What about then just looking at the top 3? All the things you've talked about, all the places you've been, all the places you've worked, from KRLD right on through, from the University of North Texas when you started it all.
Yeah.
What are the 3 things? Anything come to mind? All the things you've had a chance to do. You could give us a list that goes from here to Lubbock. But I'm just saying 3 things that come to mind that you are really proud of, that you've been a part
Yeah, I
of.
appreciate that. And it's going to kind of piggyback on some of your things, because a lot of the clients that I serve now are maybe not giant corporate. They're more individual or smaller brands or messages. Maybe they can't afford large PR agencies, and in fact, I know they can't. So what I have to sell them is dependability. They know that I'll just start with accessibility first. That's been one of a great selling point for me for my PR work, certainly since went out on my own. And I worked for a PR agency, and nothing against that either. And I represented a lot of clients, but you're not, if you're a client, you don't have full access to everyone at that agency, maybe just the person who's your account executive. With me, I like to create a personal relationship with all my clients and their brands. So it's accessibility. They know they have readily accessibility factor with me at pretty much any hour, and they utilize that, I'm finding out, at all hours. But that's okay.
It's 3 in the morning? I'm
yeah.
sorry, Brian. I
Yeah,
didn't know it was
really.
a...
Are you sure I need to
you
post
sure?
that to Facebook right now?
Yeah,
Can
exactly.
that not wait? So being accessible to my clients, being dependable, they know that I'm going to follow up, and that's always been something I've prided myself in all my work when I worked in radio and anywhere, is that you can always count on me to get it done. It's not going to get forgotten. And then I really like the trustworthy item that you mentioned. I've built that trust. I'm proud of that, and I've kind of built my company based on media people, and I know I can build those relationships with clients. They can trust me.
Oh, that's good. Good stuff.
So,
Kind of what you see is what you get with me.
That's good.
I could tell Marnie has a question.
Oh.
So
No,
Marnie,
no,
go ahead.
not-
But I have. Oh,
Not-
okay.
No.
Okay.
I
Okay.
love
So,
Fire away.
your
well,
questions.
so you've taught.
Is it about
you-
Martha's Vineyard and why I went there for
Well,
a year?
I do
Oh,
want
I'll
to
back
get to that, but you've been.
It's a great place.
Yes,
I know why you went.
I know. Why would you leave?
Yeah.
But were you ever at a university where a big story broke and you had to try to control the narrative some way? What was that, and how do you handle that?
Yeah. Really, a little bit of a reverse of that was I went to SMU right after the death penalty was announced.
Okay.
So what a time to be going to.
So were you there for the first 2 years that they did not have football?
Correct.
Okay. Well, then you had to.
So there
had-
was a lot there. The story broke, as we all know. Some big stories in February's of
Yeah.
that broke in the February of 87.
86, 87.
87, I think
Yeah,
it was.
87.
Broke that about the SMU scandal.
That
I was-
today is just like normal.
Right. No kidding. We could have a whole nother show on that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Everything that they got put on probation for,
Is
it's all
acceptable.
acceptable now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm at KRLD when that story breaks. So that's February of 87. Well, then fast forward not too far past that, I get offered. So football goes away, obviously. And I guess it was the next year, they're revamping everything in the athletics department. The whole sports information office, everything was overturned, as we know. So they were looking to bring somebody in to join the sports information staff. So I get hired. Let's shorten that story up a little bit, with someone from the Philadelphia Eagles, as a matter of fact, Ed Wisniewski.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Ed?
Of course.
So Ed was on, so this is 87-ish, is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah, 87.
87, that's correct.
87, 88, somewhere in that time. And Ed's on the Eagles staff. So we all know him. I mean, he used to set up interviews for me with the Eagles players when I'm at KRLD. So what happened was SMU's going to hire us both in. They liked the fact that I was local and they knew the media. They liked Ed because he had certainly national prominence. So we both go in. So our first task, Marjorie, is we're still managing this giant elephant in the room of no football, but football's coming back. And then Forrest Gregg is hired as the coach. So it's not any kind of a scandal yet or anything like that. So that was a big story of, we're trying to get ready to bring football back at SMU. Forrest Gregg, the former Packer great, Hall of Famer, SMU alum. And so we're managing all that, and it's getting a lot of national attention, and we're getting a lot, mostly because here's this football scandal school coming back with Forrest Gregg and everything. I guess the only story I had to try to manage was the hire. It wasn't really a bad story when everybody ended up leaving. So I get hired. Dave Bliss is the we all know the Dave Bliss story, but this
Right.
is before all of that had happened. Dave Bliss is the basketball coach at SMU. He interviews me as one of my many people I talk with over there, and I knew Dave because we carried SMU basketball. So that interview was just like, let's just talk. As part of my interview to get the SID job. So I go to work there. Well, then Dave immediately leaves to go to New Mexico because what's happening is everything's about to change
Yeah.
at SMU. So now the search is on for the new basketball coach. Well, it's going to be John Shoemate, the former Notre Dame player. Well, that story, we have a press conference scheduled, but somebody's getting the story a little sooner, and it was Kevin Sherrington,
Oh, was it
the
Kevin?
Dallas Morning News.
Yes.
Somehow he sniffed it out, and so we had a press conference scheduled, but I guess Kevin had contacted me and said that, they know the story. So now it's all I'm trying to do is we were sending out an alert that there was a press conference the next day, and I think we got a little too much information or something in that alert, and so Kevin had it, and he goes, well, we may go with the story. And so he and I had a really good relationship because I had seen him always with KRLD. So I had to try to do everything I could do to keep him, could you just hold the story till tomorrow, which he did.
Oh, did he really?
He did. They could have gone ahead and run it before the press conference.
Well, that shows great respect for you.
Yeah, I was, thank you. But I just thought,
Yeah.
he's got this great story. He may go with it. But I'd known him for a long time, but I don't know if that was the reason he did it or not. I don't know. But he did me a huge
Wow.
Oh, for
favor
sure.
for that.
Well, Kevin's a
Came
great
out there.
guy. He's a great
super great guy.
journalist, great writer.
Totally.
know,
I
just-
always have had great respect for him and everything that he covered. So I guess that was it, trying to manage that one. I haven't had a lot of too big scandals except the post-SMU scandal.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Very
So what
interesting.
about influencers? So if you're doing PR and you have where do the influencers fit into the whole PR world these days?
It's huge. And that's one thing, too, coming from old school media now to PR, and then certainly in the recent years, I had to really educate myself. It's all about social media and online sites, bloggers, influencers. It's about that. In my early public relation days, we were trying to do placements. I worked with an agency that mostly it was travel clients. So we were trying to get big print stories in great travel magazines, Condé Nast Traveler and all these great ones, or broadcast stories or anything like that. But with, once online and social just exploded and became, and even publications went all online or mostly, we realized, influencers and the amount of followings the influencers have, that's where it is for our clients now. So I had to do especially when I went out on my own, I had to educate myself
Right.
pretty quickly.
You have to find a bunch of influencers.
I got to find a lot of influencers, and I got to get connected to them.
right.
Yeah.
And who are they following? And I need them to follow my clients. And so that was kind of an education, a reinventing of what I do from even my early PR days to the 7 years I've been out on my own. I realized, and I spend an enormous amount of my time dealing with influencers and social media for my clients. It's just where it is. So a lot of research to find out who are the top trending influencers and blogs out there that we need to be following, and that we need to follow our clients, get connected to them. I want to do some campaigns with them. We've done a lot of that where we get bloggers to, sometimes it's paid, sometimes it's not, where they will blog a lot for our client, or we used to take them on press trips where they would do a lot for our travel clients. So the world of influencers it's all about that for PR right now.
It's amazing. It's so different. I mean, I would imagine just being in the PR world, it's so not traditional. It's like,
Yes.
who is this person that doesn't really have any experience, but he's or she is followed by a lot of people, so their credibility, it's still, their credibility is what it is, but it might not really be really credible, but you just have to go along with it.
That's exactly right, Marnie. That was the toughest part for me at first, was who is this person that's asking me for, they want interviews, they want a trip, or they want whatever it is they want. So the legwork on my end to research and find out, okay, well, I got to find out who they are first. How many followers do they have? And some, some will ask for everything. And then I'll look and okay, well, you have 100 followers. And then I'll look on the next one and it's pretty good. They have 56,000 or 180,000 followers. And okay, those are the people, that's the one I want to do. But it's created on the PR side a lot of legwork to check these people out.
Yeah,
because, anybody could just sit down, you know what, I'm going to decide I'm an influencer.
Yeah.
And so now I want to follow everything, sports. I'm an influencer. I want to follow the Cowboys, and I want to be able to get access to everything. And, those kind of PR staffs, I can imagine what they're inundated with on influencers who are wanting access to games and athletes and events, and they have to vet those influencers. So it's pretty active,
Wow.
to say the least.
Just listening to this, it sounds like a lot of the skills haven't changed. Like if you want influencers to get the word out on something, you still have to give them something that they want,
You do.
that kind of thing. But the platforms and everything are just so different.
I think that hits it on the head. It's the platforms, Marjorie. They're all still looking for the similar stories or access. And, from my side of it, it still requires writing skills. Everything that, was writing scripts at KRLD to deliver or press releases. And it still requires good writing skills for me to pitch those
Right.
bloggers and
You
influencers.
don't use AI?
I do use AI
Okay.
some.
That to me seems a natural fit.
It is a natural fit. The way I look at that, and that's a whole show too. AI from a public relations standpoint, I like to see that as a good starting point to if I want to craft something.
Yeah, because it's a
But
tool. It's
it's a
not
tool.
a final.
It's right, and
a
that's what I
tool.
try to tell my clients who are fascinated by it, that it is a tool, but then we need a human person to personalize it for your product or your message. And so it's a great starting point to get you going down the road. It's like a roadmap, and then you can fill in your points of destination. But to personalize it, you still need the human factor, but it's a great tool.
Yeah. And, when it's used ethically,
Correct.
I think there are a lot of places that could find it as great benefit to them.
There's a lot of uses for it, and I think we're going to see more and more of it. I mean, it is the coming trend. As much as a lot of us have tried to fight back against that, I had to tell some of my clients, some were so enamored by it that, hey, look, we could have this person or this AI could just write all of our website copy and do our social media. And I'm thinking,
my gosh.
that's a great idea, but what about me?
Yeah.
And that's what you pay me to do.
And you don't want to sound like AI created
No,
it.
you don't, because it's very generic.
Right.
And it looks, it's nothing against Wikipedia. It's very generic. And you need to then go and fine tune it, personalize it. But to start, it can give you a lot of infrastructure to start with.
Yeah. It sounds like so many things have changed over the course of your career.
Yes.
But now Scott brought up Martha's Vineyard.
Ah, yes. My 1 year detour in life.
In the three little word why.
Yeah.
Scott, and so that was 1995. I'm at North Texas, and
Not as a student, but now you're.
no, I'm on the staff, athletic
SID.
staff. A lot of changes were going on at that time, but it was my alma mater. I really thought I would be there for the rest of my career.
Did you really?
Absolutely. I thought, okay, I'm at my alma mater. I'm loving this. I'm an assistant athletics director now. I'm kind of just overseeing things. I love this. But, internally, there's always things going on. I wasn't totally happy. Well, the Martha's Vineyard story, we used to vacation there in the 80s while I was at KRLD. We had some family that lived in New York, and they got connected there. And so we just started going there about every other year. Well, I loved it. Anyway, who wouldn't? So it's a great place to visit. Let me just say that to start with. So we went there and we visited a lot, made a lot of trips there for vacations. And every time I'd go, I think, wow, what a place this would be to live. But totally ridiculous idea, right? And what am I going to do here, and how could I afford that? So I'd keep coming back. Well, this one particular year at North Texas, I had gone to Martha's Vineyard. I was a little disgruntled with where I was, so I'm reading a thing called, remember, print newspapers.
I
So I'm
heard
reading
of those.
the island newspaper, the Vineyard Gazette, one day on the beach. So, and I just happened to be looking back through the classified ads, and there in this huge display ad from the island radio station, Martha's Vineyard Radio, and they have an advertisement for wanted news director, sports director. I'm thinking, this is
Perfect.
right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, they had you in mind.
Yes. So I'm thinking, should I do this? And so we were to leave the island the next day, and you have to take a ferry boat to get back to what we called America. And so we knew the next day we were going to take the ferry home. So I thought, I should call the radio station. So I do. I call the radio station. Look, we're visiting here. I actually have worked in radio in Dallas in the market for a long time. They go, oh yeah, really? Yeah. I'm sure they probably don't get too many people say that.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
market.
Yeah.
So they said, I said, but I'm leaving. They go, well, can you come cut on audition tape? I go, yeah. So
Before you left?
before I left. So I had one of my friends back here in Texas. I said, look, don't ask me why, but I just need you to get my resume, and here's where it is on my computer, and back in these days, fax it to me
Yeah.
to this convenience store here on Martha's Vineyard. They go, what are you doing? I go,
Yeah, I'll tell you
tell you later. Just fax me my resume. Okay, so they do it. I get it. So now I'm going for this interview for the radio station and cut on audition tape on the day before we leave. Well, I don't have any interview stuff, so I go in my best shorts attire that I have, roll into the radio station. I see that I'm probably a little overdressed when I see the rest of the people.
Oh, wow.
They dress like they're on the beach all the time. So I go in. Here I am. I'm from Texas. I have worked in radio. Okay, come in, sit down, they give me some script. I try to pronounce all those tough, difficult Massachusetts names of cities and things. And they said, okay, well, we'll let you know. Well, I get back to Texas, and the next day they call and say, we'd like to offer you the job.
Wow.
So
Really?
to answer your question, why, Scott, I'm not sure why, but I accepted it. Our family, we move everything we own like we're going to live on the island for the rest of our lives. Up there, it was very difficult to find a place to live, but we found one. And then we also found out it's also very expensive to live at Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
You need to already have your living made when you move there.
I'll tell you, Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket.
And Nantucket.
And-
my
Yes,
favorite places.
definitely.
Oh,
Oh, it's gorgeous. And so we lived there just for a year. I did morning sports and radio and news and morning drive. Loved it. Lived the life of going to the beach every
Wow.
afternoon. And the whole family was up there. Again, but we realized, you know what? This is going to be difficult to live here for a very long term.
yeah.
We can't afford this. So we packed up everything we owned the next summer, moved home.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
it.
But
And
what a
then
great
I'll tell you what,
experience.
But we still talk about it here.
Yeah.
It's been 25 years ago.
yeah.
We only have about a minute left. Your legacy, years from now, what do you want people, when somebody says Brian Boscoe, what do you want them to remember? The incredible career you've had for so many decades. What comes to mind?
Well, I'm honored that I was even asked to be on this show.
Oh,
So I think a reputation that I had, that I was respectable and honest, and that, you know, like you said earlier, that I could be dependent upon, and that I would like to be remembered like that in the media and on the PR side.
well, I think you did it. I don't think there's any concern as to whether you achieved that or not. Would you not
Right.
agree,
Oh,
Marjorie?
No, no question.
Well, thank
No
you
you know,
very much.
trustworthy. There are so many other things I
Yeah.
would add.
Yes, I agree.
I appreciate
agree.
it very much.
I agree
I'm
very
honored
much.
to be here. Thank you so
And
much.
you
much.
know,
Nope.
accessible is huge. That's
It is
that's
huge.
that's really great.
Yep, the name of the
you very
game.
much.
Yes.
So, well, thank you, Brian Boscoe. Continued success.
Thanks.
10 seconds. What are you doing now?
On public relations, if you
Okay,
need somebody
yeah.
to
Give us that-
market
give-
your brand or
give it-
elevate your message, that's
Yeah, how do they get hold of you?
You can call me,
Okay,
940-395-6115, or just go to briscoecommunications.com.
Briscoe
Wow,
Communications, BRISCOE.
That's it.
.com.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Scott.
Brian.
Thanks, Scott,
so much.
Marjorie, Marnie.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian.
All right. So, on behalf of Marnie and Marjorie and Brian, I'm Scott. Till next time on Journey Through Sports and Life, stay safe, be well.